Ms. Legalista, aka Attorney Sheila here. We're going to be talking about another Sean Diddy Combs lawsuit. This one with Joy Dickerson-Neal, I think is the name. I have not had a chance to look at this. So this is going to be a first read. We're going to be going through this together. If you have seen the videos that I talked about with Cassie, she gave all of the details. Some of it was very disturbing. At least I felt that way. I did a follow-up video talking about, well, hey, where were the doctors in this? Because she was saying that her medical records went to him. There was just a whole lot there. But let's now jump into this new lawsuit that's been filed under the New York Adult Survivors Act. And yeah, they're alleging some things in this one. Let's talk about it. Yeah. Coming out of the state of New York, Joy Dickerson-Neal, Sean Combs, aka P. Diddy, Bad Boy Entertainment, doing business as Bad Boy Records, Combs Enterprises LLC. The location of the incidents was New York. I think we all already knew that. Plaintiff designates New York County as the place of trial. It says, hey, you are hereby summoned to answer this complaint in this action and to serve a copy of your answer, or if the complaint is not served with the summons, to serve a notice of appearance within 20 days. In case of your failure to appear or answer, judgment will be taken against you by default for the relief demanded in this complaint. This is what I tell people all the time. If you get a summons, if you get a complaint, read it, look at what you're supposed to do, respond, get on the phone, talk to an attorney, because what can happen is the other party can get a default judgment against you if you do nothing. Sometimes people want to stick their heads in the sand. I'm telling you, that is not always the best course of action. Let's jump back in and see what we're talking about in this. I had never heard of this person, but now I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on her, because I think she was saying, I think I read somewhere that she was a musician. She was pursuing a music career, which explains why she would have been in contact with him. Plaintiff demands a trial by jury. Her attorneys are Phillips and Associates, PLLC. Now I'll have to look them up. Nature of the action, and as you can see here, there are some other comments in here. Now this is a new comment, and I had seen this being reported in the media too, but I love to be able to have this document in front of us so that we can actually see exactly what it says. It's one thing to read an article somebody else wrote. It's another thing to see it right here in black and white. Plaintiff brings suit against defendants to redress the substantial and lifetime injuries she has suffered as a result of being and being the victim of, you see that there, that he created and distributed. Now, this is something different because this was not something that was in Cassie's, this RP part that was created and distributed. However, Cassie did talk about the fact that he had made recordings, and then at one point in time, she thought he had deleted those recordings when in fact they were on an airplane, and he showed her that he still had something of her. And if you recall, you know, some of those videos were her with other people because that was his thing, according to what she was alleging in the lawsuit. All right. And seeks damages to redress the injuries she has suffered as a result of being. Okay, there you go. Preliminary statement. Let's get a little background here. And I did read that she was a student. Joy Dickerson was a college student at Syracuse University, pursuing a degree in psychology and filled with hopes for a bright future. While Ms. Dickerson did not come from a family with means, she was raised by a single mother who instilled in her high moral and ethical standards and a strong sense of civic duty. She was whip smart, beautiful, and aware that her good reputation was an important asset to be safeguarded. On January 3rd, 1991, let me backtrack for just a second. I'm just wondering, okay, so she was a college student in Syracuse. I was just wondering if that was where she grew up, if she was originally from New York. On January 3rd, 1991, while on school break for the holidays, Ms. Dickerson reluctantly agreed to an early dinner with Sean Combs or P. Diddy. Okay, I need a little bit more background here. We jump from she's in school to, you know, I'm going to dinner with Mr. Combs. I'm missing, there's a whole big gap there of information. She went from like kindergarten to high school, and I wasn't prepared. Ms. Dickerson reluctantly agreed to an early dinner with Sean Combs or P. Diddy. They had many friends and acquaintances in common. Okay, so maybe this is how we get there. And she had appeared with Combs in a few clips of a music video. Okay, I'm understanding a little bit more here. After dining at the famous Wells restaurant in Harlem, home of chicken and waffles since 1938. Okay, I love how we put this in here. Is this a detail that's required for the lawsuit? I'm just not thinking it is, but now I feel like I have to go look them up because I'm not from New York, and now I want to know all about Wells Restaurant in Harlem, home of chicken and waffles since 1938. Combs pushed Ms. Wells to keep him company as he attended a few things in the city. I'm confused. Do they mean Ms. Dickerson? Getting into Combs' car that day was something Ms. Dickerson would come to regret forever. During their date, Combs had initially drugged Ms. Dickerson, resulting in her being in a physical state where she could not independently stand or walk. Okay, so I'm doing a lot of sighing and I'm apologizing because I feel like this is just really jumping along. I'm just having a little bit of trouble following that. So I'm going to slow down here. Driving first to a music studio where she could not get out of the car, Combs proceeded to a place he was staying, to SA her, as was his practice. Unbeknownst to Ms. Dickerson, Combs' video recorded the event there. Days later, a male friend revealed to her that he had viewed the tape along with other men. Horrified, Ms. Dickerson asked how many others saw it, to which he responded, everyone. Ms. Dickerson's life went into a tailspin. She returned to college, but soon had to be admitted to the hospital for severe depression and suicide. Now we get to this point where we have witnesses. There is sometimes when we're looking at this, especially right now, I do see this. I'm going to talk about it. I do see some people questioning whether or not these women are being truthful and whether or not they're just seeking money. I am seeing that. I do see people asking that, and some people are saying that. In this case, we're on page 3, and she's mentioning witnesses here. These are possible witnesses. And here's the thing. It's not just that they saw the video, it's what they saw in the video. For instance, did she appear to be in a state where she knew what was going on and what was happening? Did she appear to actively consent to what was going on? And I bring these things up not as a person who's on somebody's side, but I bring these things up as something that her attorney can now ask, can say, if these witnesses are on the stand, what was the demeanor? What was the behavior looking like? Was Ms. Dickerson standing up on her own? Was she totally engaged in everything that was going on? What were your first thoughts when you saw the video? Imagine this video being talked about by the attorney, broken apart with these witnesses. And here, I don't know how many, quantify everyone. Like in your head right now, as I'm talking, when someone says to you, everyone, how many people do you think that means? To me, it sounds like it's more than 3 or 4. It sounds like, it's a group of people. They kind of hang out. They kind of all know each other. They work, alongside with these people, and everybody in the group saw it. So it sounds like it was quite a few people there. I am just, I'm imagining some of the questions that are going to take place, because now, like I said before, we have other people who can possibly choose or not to come forward. I don't know. We'll see. But look at this line here, this line right here that I can't highlight because I don't have my highlighter on. And now I'm going to do highlight orange. Let's see if we can change that to yellow, because I'm such a yellow person when it comes to highlight. Look at this. A male friend. She doesn't put the person's name in the complaint. I wonder whether or not she's had conversations with this person yet to say, hey, I'm going to file this complaint. Did she talk to this person beforehand? Or, is this person hearing about this like everybody else? What do you think about that? Let's scroll down. Her life went into a tailspin. She returned to college, but as you can see there, she ran into some issues. Unable to function, she dropped out, and she has struggled with her mental health and career progression thereafter. The public exposure of it caused her to suffer overwhelming feelings of humiliation, embarrassment, violation, and constant apprehension about who all viewed it. Okay, let me, who I'm just, let me just highlight this piece for a second. And this is not a critique of the attorney, but there's something to think about in terms of how you write something and constant apprehension about who all viewed it. I'm just going to move on. As Combs' success and wealth rose quickly, she tried to block his existence out. And here's an S that's missing. Okay, so now the admin must have been out. The paralegal must have been out because I'm on my third issue here with the writing in this. I mean, we all make errors. We all make typos and grammatical errors, but there are a few things that I already told you. See, even I sound discombobulated at this point. The flow at the beginning, I think, was off. I think it should have been a little bit more chronological so that I can follow it along. Remember, I said she went from kindergarten to high school, and then they backtracked and talked about how they got there. I don't understand why they thought that that was a good way to write this. Maybe I'm just the one confused here. A side note, maybe this is what's going on. There was a deadline on this. This was not an act that was out there, the Adult Survivors Act, where people could keep filing these cases forever. So there was a deadline. Maybe trying to get this done at the last minute by that deadline, maybe that's why this is not. I just personally feel this way. I think there were a few adjustments that could have been made in this. And I know some of you are going to look at this later and be like, she was just trying to be so nice about what she wanted to say about that attorney. I'm just saying, you never know. That's what I'm saying. You never know. It could have been that she and this attorney had a few conversations back and forth over the last month or so. And it could have been that 2 weeks before the deadline, she was like, yes, I've decided, I've talked with my family, I am going to move forward with filing this. And it could have been that the attorney already had some other things in place. It could have been that the attorney's admin, the paralegal, was out and didn't get a chance to review it. They didn't get a chance to send it through somebody else. So there are numerous things that could have happened that explain, that really provide some understanding as to why there are some issues that I personally have with the way the complaint is reading, with the way it was written, and some of what I'm seeing here. So you're very much seeing, like I said, a first read on this, and you're definitely getting my take on it, which, I don't know. And so still today, Ms. Dickerson continues to work on her emotional health, economic recovery, and finishing her college degree. Seeking accountability from Combs under the law is one more step in that journey. Okay, so then we have the Adult Survivors Act. And as you can see here, 1 year beginning on November 24, 2022. So like I said, the time was running out. And let's go back and look up here. Look at when this was filed, 11/23/2023, 2:42 p.m. in the afternoon. So like I said, there was not a whole lot of time left in terms of her being able to get this filed. She was running out of time here. All right, and so they give some information here about the actual law. And then, yeah. All right, so let's get into the parties here. Hey, he's a Grammy awarding. Oh, how would I have written this? He is a Grammy award winning musician. Okay, I'm extending grace. That is how I would have written this. At all relevant times, he was resident of New York State. Prior to the release of Combs' debut album in 1997, Combs was a prominent member of the New York hip hop community. From 1990 to 1993, Combs was known for working as a talent director at Uptown Records. Combs was also known, I mean, just the was is missing. Combs was also known for throwing parties that attracted thousands of attendees, including the who's who of the hip hop world. He founded Defendant Bad Boy Records, In 2008, he was the first male rapper to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2022, Forbes estimated that Combs was one of the wealthiest hip-hop artists in America, and his net worth was over $1 billion. Upon information and belief, Combs has a history of committing these kinds of acts. And let me point out this language here, because I was trying to tell someone in another video, just when you're making allegations in a complaint, that you don't want to engage in defaming someone, and so you will put these kinds of, I don't know, these statements in front of the statement that comes after it. Okay, upon information and belief, that's what we attorneys will say. We will talk about allegations and things that appear to be a certain way. That's what we'll do. On May 8, 2017, Cindy Rueda, Combs' personal chef, filed a suit. Okay, that's 2017. Then you have Gina Nguyen, I think is how you pronounce that, an ex-girlfriend, detailed in an interview what happened there. And then you had November 16, 2023, Cassie Ventura, and I thought her name was Ventura. An artist signed onto Bad Boy Records filed a suit in the Southern District of New York talking about filming. Given the extensive media coverage of his treatment of women, defendants Bad Boy Records and Combs Enterprise LLC had knowledge and were put on notice of the allegations made against him. So then we have Bad Boy Entertainment, founded in 1992, a record label which has sold over 500 million records, and where he produced Mary Blige. Now, who calls her Mary? Everybody calls her Mary J. You know, the Notorious B.I.G. and Usher. Bad Boy Entertainment is a domestic LLC. Then we have Combs Enterprises, which is the parent company of Bad Boy Entertainment. And Combs Enterprises is a business conglomerate founded by P. Diddy. Factual allegations. Here are the facts, is where we are now. And I'm only on page 8. This is going to take me a minute. Plaintiff grew up in New York City and was raised by a single mother, began attending in 1987 Syracuse University, as she was aspired to attend after hearing stories about her late father, who had attended the university and had died the same year she was born. She majored in psychology. Plaintiff was a hardworking student who balanced her studies while also working as a server at Wells Restaurant in Harlem, New York, to pay for her education. Maybe that was the piece that I missed the first time around. Maybe I was reading too fast. Maybe that is what was going on. We'll see when I go back and edit this video. Plaintiff was looking to make a foothold in the music industry and had worked as a receptionist at Apple One, a renowned talent agency, and as a location scout for Gary Brewer, an industry cameraman. Plaintiff also collaborated with Chuck Stone, a film director, on music videos, and you see there with some of the artists. Plaintiff met Sean Combs and learned of his reputation. On repeated occasions, Combs pursued Plaintiff for a romantic or relationship. However, Plaintiff had heard that Combs had a history of treating women badly and rejected his advances each time. In fact, Sister Souljah, a rapper from the Bronx, pointedly asked Plaintiff why she and Combs had been featured together in the music video for Straight from the Soul. And Plaintiff understood that Sister Souljah was warning her to stay away from Combs given his infamous reputation. Plaintiff reluctantly agreed to go on a date with Combs. Finally, on January 3rd, 1991, during her winter break, Ms. Dickerson reluctantly agreed to meet Combs in New York City. Again, wary of being alone with him, Plaintiff chose Wells Restaurant in Harlem, New York, which was a familiar environment as she worked there as a server and knew the employees. At Wells, Plaintiff began to feel more comfortable as she and Combs engaged in conversation over food and drinks. Later in the evening, Plaintiff had to utilize the restroom and left her drink unattended. Combs indicated he did not want the date to end and asked Plaintiff to join him in doing some errands he had to run around the city. While driving with Combs in his car, Combs produced UC and asked Plaintiff to take a hit. Plaintiff politely declined, but he was insistent that Plaintiff should roll with him and promised to have her home at a decent time so she could study. Feeling pressure, Plaintiff reluctantly took a hit of the blunt. From that point on, Plaintiff's memory is incomplete. So this is probably a sentence I would not have put quite like that, because at trial, his attorney can now say, but you said in the complaint that your memory is incomplete. How do you know any of this that you are now alleging happened after that? Because you said here it was incomplete, you know? So I don't know. I think there might have been a different way to state that. Plaintiff recalls Combs bringing her to a music studio, and when she attempted to exit the car, her legs felt rubbery and she was unable to stand. Plaintiff next recalls being outside of a residence where it seems Combs was living, except he rang the doorbell. Okay, this sounds interesting. A man who was an acquaintance of both Plaintiff and Combs answered the door. Plaintiff recalls that being odd, as she believed perhaps mistakenly that it was Combs's home. Okay, so maybe he was visiting. I don't know. While in the home, Combs, okay, you see there, paragraph 53, plaintiff recalls feeling humiliated and hurt, yet she could not escape the event because she had been. She lacked the physical ability and mental capacity to fend him off. The next day, you can see she said, hurt in a way she had never experienced in any times before that. Feeling confused, pain, embarrassment, and shame, plaintiff did not go to the hospital or report it to the police, sought refuge in her apartment, avoiding any outside contact. The next day, she broke down and tearfully recalled this to her best friend. Okay, now we have another witness here. So, witness, come forward and tell us if this happened. Look, anytime you can bring a witness from way, way, way back in the day who can say, yep, I was there. We had a conversation. She was crying on the phone. As a matter of fact, she called me at 3 a.m. in the morning, whatever the circumstances, whatever this person can remember, how much of the details this person can remember, all of this is going to add credibility to her allegations. It's one thing to say, hey, it's just me stepping up and saying this. It's another thing to say, there were witnesses who saw the video. Here was the best friend that I talked to the next day. It's most of the time, all these people are not going to come up and be willing to perjure themselves for somebody. That's a lot to ask for a bunch of people. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this case and whether or not, this is another settlement, and whether or not the New York Police Department opens an investigation, because last time I checked, they had said, no, there is not an investigation in place out there. We'll see. All right, let's see. Shortly thereafter, Devontae Swing. I remember Devontae Swing from Jodeci. Now we have another name here. Remember, I told you, she said the friend told her that he had seen the video. Now we know who this is. Shortly thereafter, Devontae Swing, a member of R&B group Jodeci, told plaintiff that Combs had filmed himself and shown the video to Swing and others while working at the studio. Plaintiff asked Swing who had seen the video, and he replied, everyone. So everyone sort of means everyone who was probably in the studio at that point in time. Plaintiff was mortified as she learned that Combs had filmed it and knew it would haunt her for the rest of her life and career. Swing told plaintiff that he wanted to speak up against Combs, but he was fearful that the band would lose their record deal. So here is someone who actually, and here's the thing, this gives her more credibility. I don't know how else to say this. To have another young man who was there and who she's now saying she's putting him in a favorable light. And I know some people will say, well, no, Sheila, that's not favorable because he didn't step up. He had some concerns there too. And it's not just him, it's his contract. And he's got other members in his group too that he's putting at risk. And, the fact that he is now listed here adds more credibility, I think is what I'm saying. And the fact that he told her, because here's the other thing, he could have said nothing. Doesn't sound like anybody else said anything to her. She's walking around and people know and people saw and people are not saying anything. So I'm not saying he's an angel or anything, but plaintiff was mortified as she learned that Combs had filmed it and it would haunt her. Okay. Swing told plaintiff that he wanted to speak up, but he was fearful. Jodeci was in the midst of recording their studio album, Forever Lady, for which Combs was doing A&R. Okay, so then we have the breakdown here. In the coming weeks, plaintiff did her best to pull herself together so she could return to Syracuse University. Despite this, she kept experiencing flashbacks, extreme sleeplessness for days on end, social withdrawal, and would recoil at even the most basic physical touch. She felt physically unable to leave her dorm at Haven Hall, thus she was frequently absent from her classes. She also had an inability to focus and concentrate as her mind constantly replayed what happened, leading to her grades to plummet. Her mother grew so concerned with Plaintiff's sudden downturn in her emotional state and her repeated assertions that she no longer wanted to live. Thus, Plaintiff's mother instructed her to go to the emergency room. She was admitted, and you can see there what she was experiencing. After she was discharged, she continued to experience emotional turmoil. And you can see this plaintiff again became socially isolated. And then you have paragraph 72. She begins to recover and she desperately sought to hold him accountable. Plaintiff's mom told her to contact Pastor Calvin Butts. Okay, so now, we have this conversation here, but she says she felt too ashamed to speak with him, worried that he would judge her. That could have been another potential witness. Plaintiff filed, and when I say witness, I mean not someone who saw what happened, but someone who can testify with information that might be relevant to the case at hand. Plaintiff filed police reports in New York and New Jersey and spoke to several prosecutors, hoping to press charges. Okay. Again, a little bit more credibility. Here's what happens. So in the beginning, when it's just this person said this happened and this person said it didn't happen, and then this person says, okay, well, there was a video, and this person's still saying nothing happened. And then this person's saying, well, here's a person who told me about the video and all of the people who saw it. And this person's still saying nothing happened. And this person says, oh, well, I also told a best friend and my mom knew about it. And this person is still saying nothing happened. And this person saying, well, later on, I went and filed police reports. And this person said, do you see what I'm saying? Like the balance starts to now tip a little bit more. Every time you add more over there, it starts to tip a little bit more in that person's favor. It's not some sort of smoking gun, but it adds up when a jury is constantly perhaps hearing testimony from person after person after person. And let's just be honest, by now, any jury is probably, aware of some of the talk that has been going on around him. I don't know where this is gonna go. Let's keep going here. Members of law enforcement told plaintiff that her allegations would need to be corroborated by witnesses and others who had experienced similar. Okay, so we see that there. Plaintiff also approached various friends, acquaintances, and colleagues to assist her in locating this tape. Look at this. People she reached out to. These people may be able to possibly not, say, oh, yeah, it happened, but hey, yes, she contacted me about some tape. And yes, I remember she was very upset. And yes, it was about X time in my life. Again, look at the balance. Like the balance in the beginning was he said, he said, she said, okay, she said, he said, and then it starts to tip as you throw more over here. Colleagues told plaintiff that they were terrified that Combs would retaliate against them and that they would lose future business and music opportunities if they made a statement in support of plaintiff, as Combs' star was on the rise in the 1990s. Combs had experienced great success with the launch of the career of the Notorious B.I.G., whose hit single Juicy had charted on Billboard. Some potential witnesses were afraid of Combs' wrath, as he was known to be violent, while others declined because they feared they would not be invited to his future parties and events. Imagine that. Yeah, I can't speak up because then I won't get a party invite. Combs tried to dissuade plaintiff from reporting him. We're on page 12. Despite her emotional pain, plaintiff continued to work in the music industry and began working for Stress Management, a DJ management company that represented DJ Funkmaster Flex and others. At Stress Management, plaintiff's supervisor was Jessica Rosen Bloom. I'm telling you, every time they drop a name, I'm just like, uh-oh. Who was known for creating Mecca, a party series where many of New York's hip-hop legends performed. Sometimes I get tongue twisted myself, which is why I said, extend this attorney some grace here. This may have been very much a last-minute thing that the person had to put together. Plaintiff helped promote Rosen Bloom. See, I said that person's name wrong. Rosen Bloom. Oh, Okay, so which spelling is it? Is it Rosen Bloom or is it Rosen Bloom? Rosen Bloom's parties and acted as her personal assistant by completing any errands she had. One night, Plaintiff was working at. Okay, so we're back to the other spelling. Rosen Bloom. I'm confused now. When she unfortunately ran into Combs and did her best to avoid talking with him. Despite Plaintiff's efforts, Combs backed Plaintiff into a corner and inappropriately confronted her in public. Combs drastically got down on his knees before insisting that he wanted her to believe him when he said he did not do what she was saying. Rosen Bloom noticed Combs' odd behavior and asked why he was begging her for forgiveness. Plaintiff merely told Rosen Bloom that Combs had wronged her as she was afraid of divulging more, as Rosen Bloom often worked with Diddy. Okay, if we could just get the spelling on the name, I'd just appreciate it. Plaintiff left the music industry as Diddy's rise was too painful to witness. After working for Stress, Plaintiff began writing music video treatments. However, Plaintiff realized she could not continue to work in the music industry as his star continued to rise and his presence was inescapable. Plaintiff decided to try her hand at screenwriting and ended up moving to California, moving thousands of miles from the location of the event. Plaintiff had always wanted to work at a record label, but knew that dream had cratered as Combs continued to garner multi-platinum albums and win Grammys. And Grammys does not need, okay, all right, I don't know. And win Grammys. Plaintiff's emotional trauma resurges. Plaintiff spent years trying to recover. During the pandemic, she spent hours rereading her journals and digitizing them. Ooh, these journals. That's going to be interesting. I could see, though, the other side saying, oh, no. That's like hearsay. We're not letting that in. All right. It was the filing of the lawsuit about what happened to Cassie. Okay, so I have to check this. I do believe her name is Cassie Ventura. Anyway, that was filed November 16, 2023, and this forced her to face this event again. After reading about the lawsuit, Plaintiff spoke to an ex-boyfriend for the first time in years after reading the lawsuit. During their conversation, Plaintiff's ex recalled how she would become physically ill and recoil every time his music was played or his name was mentioned. Still hoping for justice, Plaintiff brings this case against Combs now. While many years have passed, his illegal conduct has cast a shadow over her life. Years later, Plaintiff has continued with providers to aid in her recovery and treatment. Tragically, despite several attempts, Plaintiff has not been able to finish her college degree as her subconscious associates her studies with the event. Combs' conduct forever changed the trajectory of her career, denying her what might have been a lucrative and successful career in the music industry. Plaintiff is confident she can prove her case through at least a dozen witnesses to testify to her severe emotional distress and harm that she's experienced. I mean, I think this is just another settlement that's coming. You've got the first cause of action here. You've got the causes of action listed: intentional infliction of emotional distress. You've got, oh yes, okay, we're bringing that in too, and you can see here, transported her, forced her. Yes, all of that. We've got a third course of action right here, and yeah, I'm not even going to go through all of that. Fourth cause of action, we have gender motivated. Then we have, let's see, how many more? Fifth cause of action. This just goes on and on against defendants. Okay. Because remember, we have multiple defendants here. Jury demand. Plaintiff demands a trial by jury on all issues. And you see here, defendant engaged in unlawful practices prohibited by, and you see everything listed there: seeking compensatory damages for mental, emotional injury, distress, pain, and suffering injury to a reputation in an amount to be proven, breach of contract, punitive damages, and the costs there. And then, of course, that last thing that attorneys always add in there: awarding plaintiff such other and further relief as the court may deem equitable, just, and proper to remedy defendants' unlawful practices. And there you have the end of the lawsuit. And yes, I will definitely be checking out, Michelle and Jonathan. It sounds like you two had some last minute that this really was something that was last minute. So it is not my intention to put down or to joke or make fun about some of what I saw in here. It sounds like this was something you pulled together for someone at the last minute. So I am extending grace here. It can be a little unnerving when you're trying to read it and follow along. But there you have it. For those of you who were wondering whether or not there was anything credible to this case, wondering, is this just another person out for money? You now have seen this lawsuit yourself. You now know about possible witnesses. You now know the events and circumstances. You now see the allegations around these different causes of action. And we're going to see where this goes. I think he's going to settle. I mean, do you take this to court? It was a long time ago. And unlike Cassie's, which wasn't as long ago, this was a long time ago. Are you going to be able to bring these witnesses to court to testify? And then what happens outside of this person pursuing a civil action against the other person? Is there ever going to be a criminal investigation? And if so, what does it look like? All right, well, that brings you up to speed. That was definitely a lot, breaking this down from beginning to end. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and peace.